A grand jury in New York is weighing a decision to indict former President Donald Trump. Today, they expected to hear from a new and unexpected witness. This testimony comes after the former president sent shockwaves through the political world over the weekend by predicting he would be arrested tomorrow. Garrett Hake shares who is coming to Trump's defense.
New York City bracing this morning for what could be an unprecedented decision by a Manhattan grand jury, whether to indict a former president for the first time in history. Donald Trump shocking the political world Saturday, predicting on his social media platform that he would be arrested on Tuesday, calling on his supporters to protest. A Trump spokesperson later clarifying the former president had not been notified he will be charged. Still, Mr. Trump's declaration is already galvanizing his supporters, with prominent Republicans rallying to his defense. Among them, the Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, who vowed to use congressional committees to investigate New York City's investigation. But McCarthy is distancing himself from Mr. Trump's call for protests.
I don't think people should protest this, no. And I think President Trump, if you talk to him, he doesn't believe that either.
Also weighing in, Mr. Trump's potential rivals for the 2024 Republican nomination.
It just feels like a politically charged prosecution here. And I, for my part, I just feel like it's just not what the American people want to see.
While the Manhattan DA's office isn't commenting, their case centers on whether then-candidate Donald Trump in 2016 directed his attorney, Michael Cohen, to pay off adult film star Stormy Daniels, who claimed she had an affair with Mr. Trump a decade prior.
Donald Trump needs to be held accountable for his dirty deeds.
The former president has denied any wrongdoing and is accusing Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg of a, quote, partisan witch hunt. For his part, Bragg isn't responding to the criticism publicly, but told his staff in an email, quote, "Your safety is our top priority." And without naming Mr. Trump, adding, quote, "We do not tolerate attempts to intimidate our office or threaten the rule of law in New York."
Today, authorities in Vietnam seized 7 tons of illegal ivory in a container shipped from the South African nation of Angola through Singapore. The ivory was in a container declared as peanuts. It's the largest seizure of illegal wildlife products in years. Last month, a Vietnamese man was sentenced to 13 years in prison for trafficking nearly 10 tons of endangered animal parts from Africa, including ivory and rhino horns. Nearly half of Americans in a recent survey said they do not take measures to improve the air quality in their homes. The survey, conducted by a home purification company, says despite the health concerns that come with poor indoor air quality, 45% of Americans say they have not taken steps to address it. 81% of respondents say they suffer from negative symptoms in their homes, with allergies and nasal congestion among the top offenders. About 20% say they haven't changed air filters in the last 6 months.
A lot of the foods we love to eat are grown in California, but with bouts of severe rain and flooded farmland across the Golden State, agriculturists are worried about their ability to recover the damaged crops and finances. Kristen Mayo has a reaction from California farmers.
Communities across portions of central and southern California remain underwater after several days of intense rainfall. The torrential downpours overwhelming rivers and water channels, triggering floods that have especially decimated critical farmland.
All these crops are probably going to be 100% destroyed.
According to the California Department of Food and Agriculture, the Golden State grows more than 1/3 of the nation's vegetables and 3/4 of our fruits and nuts.
Here in California, we feed the world, not just the country, we feed the world.
In the city of Tulare, several feet of water are drowning crops like wheat, almonds, and pistachios. The floods are also preventing some farmers from planting corn, which could cause some delays in food production down the line.
Crop losses, my personal opinion, is between hundreds of millions to $1 billion+ dollars.
California is also the largest dairy producing state in the country, according to the USDA. Farmers impacted by the floods are now desperately trying to keep the encroaching water from flowing into their cow pens.
We'll have to be looking at an evacuation because if the water gets in, there's not going to be any way to feed our cows or keep them safe and dry.
If we see, where there's too much of a financial burden, where dairy families have to, close down their operations and in that sense, you could see more milk going away.
Happening right now in the WRAL Live Center, Chinese President Xi Jinping is in Russia today meeting with Vladimir Putin. This is his first visit since Russia invaded Ukraine, and Xi has said he wants to portray himself as a peace broker. Vladimir Putin said he is, quote, always open to the negotiation process, and they will certainly discuss all issues, including his initiative. The U.S. has warned China is considering sending lethal aid to Russia for its war effort. Beijing has denied this. Now, President Biden says he will be speaking with President Xi Jinping soon. No call has been scheduled just yet.
A new Pentagon report reveals high rates of cancer among military pilots, and for the first time also shows that ground crews are also getting sick. Retired military aviators have sounded alarms for years about the number of air and ground crew members they knew who had cancer. They were told that earlier military studies found they were not at greater risk than the general U.S. population. The year-long study found air crew members who flew on or worked on military aircraft between 1992 and 2017 had an 87% higher rate of melanoma. Overall, the air crews had a 24% higher rate of cancer of all types. Today marks 20 years since the U.S. invaded Iraq on the ground. The Senate will vote this week on repealing the power former President George W. Bush used to authorize military force in Iraq. To this day, debate remains over the reason for the invasion. The Bush administration said it was to remove weapons of mass destruction and over the country's links to 9/11 terrorist attacks. Those both turned out to be untrue. The U.S. withdrew in 2011. The war cost more than 4,500 American lives, hundreds of thousands of Iraqi lives, and plunged the country into civil war. Iraq has since made steps toward recovery with a new government in place. And WRAL was with Fort Bragg troops when the Iraqi war broke out this month 20 years ago. WRAL's Ken Smith traveled with the 37th Engineer Battalion. The troops were positioned in the desert city of Kuwait for several weeks before moving into Iraq. When the Saddam Hussein regime eventually fell, our WRAL crew made the trek north with Fort Bragg troops to Mosul. We spent about 2 months covering the stories of our Fort Bragg soldiers and their mission. We would return 2 years later with the North Carolina Army National Guard.
With the world watching the banking situation across the globe right now, you can see the Dow is in the green, up 270 points. S&P 500 also advancing 20 points, and NASDAQ, the only one down, about 11 points right now. Investors are optimistic that the infusion of cash to Credit Suisse will help stem the banking crisis. We'll keep an eye on it. Happening right now in the WRAL Live Center, Amazon has just come out and said they are cutting 9,000 more jobs, bringing this year's total to more than 27,000. CEO Andy Jassy said in a memo to his staff today, the second phase of the company's annual planning process is what led to these additional job cuts. The cuts would mark the second largest round of layoffs in the company's history. Earlier this month, the company said it would pause construction on its headquarters building in Northern Virginia. The first phase of that project is expected to be done in June. They'll welcome 8,000 employees there.
Some Twitter users risk losing access to their accounts as of today. Twitter is taking away two-factor authentication via text message from all users who aren't subscribed to its premium service, Twitter Blue. Two-factor authentication is a security measure that requires you to enter a code when you log in addition to your login details. Twitter may lock users out of their accounts if they haven't disabled that option by today. And an app meant to help make grocery pickup easy for shoppers is reportedly having an adverse effect. According to a report in the Business Insider, some Target customers aren't using the arrival notices correctly. Instead of sending an en route notice to give employees a heads up, some customers are tapping the "I'm on my way" and "I'm here" features very quickly after the other. The situation causes employees to rush to fulfill orders because of the short notice, triggering a domino effect of delays.
Leave a comment and share this video with your friends. With daily uploads, there will always be a conversation.